Good morning and welcome to the Morning Scoop for Wednesday, September 9th. This is your daily Buckeye fix. I'm Tom Orr. The fall 2020 Big Ten season is still in limbo. Yesterday was a mishmash of conflicting information on possible vote counts, which schools might be willing to play, which ones wouldn't. The only thing you can count on with any certainty is the dead silence emanating from the Big Ten offices. Big Buckeye Scoop's Marc Givler joins me this morning. Marc, last night a couple of our insiders got some new information on a possible vote. Can you let people know the latest on what we're hearing?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like they're going to have a revote by the end of the week. It sounds like players are expecting something by Friday, I believe. It seems like we're getting close to the end in terms of at least knowing if October is in or out. I don't know. I can't promise we're going to have clarity. I can't promise there's going to be a date for the start of the season set by the end of the week. I certainly can't promise that, but it does sound like we're going to know if mid-October is a possibility by the end of the week.
Yeah, a
Hopefully.
decision by Friday would give the Big Ten exactly 4 weeks before a possible October 10th kickoff, 5 weeks before October 17th. Those are two of the dates that have kind of been circled as potential start dates for the Big Ten Conference if they do start in October. That would definitely make an October start doable if they got approved by the end of the week. There are all sorts of theories floating out there right now. Tom Orr, the attorney, he threw out an interesting one, the idea that the presidents from Big Ten schools that have already decided to opt out would be, quote-unquote, disinterested in the outcome. That's a legal term, according to the conference's rules, and therefore shouldn't get a vote. There's been a lot of smoke coming out about the White House basically offering up the testing equivalent of a blank check and giving the Big Ten whatever it needs to play. I have completely given up on the idea that logic and reason can be applied to the situation. So, Marc, what do you think it would take for the league to make an October kickoff happen?
I'm going to sound like a broken record from last time, but it would take some very arrogant human beings to have a little bit of an ego check and admit, they jumped the gun initially, and that there's new information now, and that there's more help on the way to make it safer, and to have the courage and the open-mindedness to reevaluate their initial decision and look at today's evidence and say, you know what, this looks pretty freaking good. Will they do that? I remain very skeptical that they're not just going to continue to dig their heels in. I really hope I'm wrong. I think there should be October football. I hope there's October football. But I've seen so much incompetence and so much stubbornness the last month or so. It's hard for me to believe that they're all of a sudden not going to be stubborn.
Yeah, that's kind of the question mark is what is this group of presidents going to do? Because how many of them are going to be willing to change their minds from August when I think that the results of the last 6 weeks or so have sort of borne out the idea that was probably a little preliminary to cancel the season when they did. That, kicking the can back then and just sort of kicking it to now. If they had done that, how likely would that have made it more likely that they're playing this fall? And the answer to that is maybe. And, that's a real, you get into the idea of a sunk cost there, that they don't want to, well, we can't go back on this. We've already decided we can't change our minds now. That's a little maddening. And the silence in the Big Ten has just been crazy. I would, if the Big Ten had been intentionally mismanaging this situation, if Kevin Warren is some kind of secret double agent from the SEC sent to destroy the Big Ten and make this, mismanage this situation as badly as possible from a PR perspective, how would they be doing anything different?
They wouldn't be. I'm not a it's funny to, I'm not a big conspiracy theorist, but everything that they've done and that he's done would give life to that type of theory. I mean, it's, I think we were talking about that before the other day. And it's like the OJ book that he wanted to put out. I didn't kill my wife, but if I did, this is how it would have happened or whatever. I mean, that's kind of what we're dealing with here with Kevin Warren. It's like, I'm not trying to destroy the Big Ten, but if I were trying to destroy the Big Ten, this is exactly how I'd be doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, just to be clear, not accusing Kevin Warren of trying to destroy the Big Ten. I think that may be just a byproduct of how they're handling things. But that's has not been great, and Marc Pantoni had a tweet on, I think, August 23rd that basically said, like, silence is not the way to handle this. And here we are, what, 3 weeks after that, 2 weeks after that, silence is still not the way to handle it, but the silence has not changed. So that'll take care of the Big Ten talk for at least for today. And we can switch to recruiting now, where the Buckeyes got some bad, although not particularly surprising news. That offensive line prospect Nolan Rucci had committed to Wisconsin. He did not have Ohio State in his top 5, so this was not quite a total shock, but he does join names like Jagger Burton, J.C. Latham as guys that Ohio State wanted, but didn't land on the O-line this cycle. And it sure doesn't sound like Tristan Lee is going to end up a Buckeye either. That stands out to me because they're not missing in too many places right now. I mean, they have gotten more or less the top guys on their board in a whole lot of spots, and offensive line, they are really, they've got Donovan Jackson. They've got 2 guys committed right now there, but they have really struggled on the offensive line in a couple spots to land, the rest of that class. Yesterday, they sent out a new offer to a player from Kentucky. They still have some options in state as well. What do you see happening with the offensive line for the rest of this cycle?
Yeah, if there's one position that momentum came to a screeching halt back in March when the NCAA stepped in and kind of squashed everything and put us into the never-ending dead period, which I have no idea when we're going to emerge from it. Offensive line is the one that really just has not been able to carry the momentum through this dead period. They've picked up other commitments. They're still looking good for targets in other positions, but the offensive line has been a struggle. And now it's a matter of you need 2 more, or you want 2 more. Can you find 2 more where it's not like, oh boy, we're really reaching here. This kid's going to be out of the program in a couple of years. He's a project. Because I think the worst, there's only one thing worse than missing your number. It's hitting your number with bad players. So you want to make sure you're not reaching too much on these guys. And, there is still senior film out there to evaluate. There are guys out there who can improve, who they probably haven't – they haven't seen a lot of these guys in a really long time because of the lack of camps. So there is some hope there that they can find some guys that have kind of flown under the radar without all the camps going on the last 6 months. And that's going to have to be the hope, is you can scrounge up 1 or 2 guys, probably one from Ohio and probably one, probably Midwest-centric. I'm not eliminating the possibility of a kid from Florida, Texas, California, but in these times right now with no visits, I think it's going to have to be very regional. And so, if you can scrounge up 2, I happen to like the Terrence Rankle kid from Massillon, but I think with the Ohio kids, it's going to move a little slower. They're going to take their time more there. I think those are kids they can generally get involved in later. And right now it's kind of, scouring these out-of-state kids and watching game film and seeing who pops.
In addition to offensive line recruiting, you also wrote on in your Buckeye Scoop column on Tuesday about who the next in-state offer could be. And there are some familiar names on that list, but also some that a lot of Buckeye fans might not be too familiar with. Can you run us through some of those possibilities?
Yeah, we're going to stay in the 937 here. So Springfield safety Deleon Bradley, a guy they've liked for some time. I continue to hear that may be as simple as just getting him on campus for a visit. And if they're able to do that at some point, whenever that can be, that may be all it takes. I think the fact that this dead period might be getting extended here could speed up the timeline on that, where maybe it's just a couple of more Zoom calls, maybe, whatever it is, a couple of extra games of film. I think, when the, just get him to visit thing was going on, that was more of an expectation where they'd get him on campus in September or October, and that may not happen now. So, I think that's one where that could move pretty quickly now. And then I look at Emil Wagner at Huber Heights Wayne, big offensive tackle, was 240 pounds, soaking wet last year. I saw him against Olentangy Liberty. Very thin, but, big, tall, athletic kid, big frame. He's up over 250 now. He's probably put on at least 15 pounds since last season. He's starting to fill out. His technique's improving, getting a little more physical, which is coming with the added strength and weight. And then you look at their offensive line struggles a little bit right now, and that would make a lot of sense to kind of maybe make a move there in 22 and kind of start, kind of keep that going. You have Tegra Shabola already, and you're hoping to get Blake Miller as well in Ohio. So, that would give you 3 in Ohio if you could get those 3 guys, and then you wouldn't have to be in a position where you feel like you've got to star chase out of state too much. So I could see that coming together as well. Those are the 2 guys I'm kind of focused on right now. But there's a bunch they're looking at for sure. But those 2, I think, are guys who I keep hearing about and also seem to make some sense when you look at the roster and kind of what their needs are right now.
And you also wrote about the younger teammate of a current OSU commit who could also end up earning a Buckeye offer of his own. You can find that story in Marc's Buckeye Scoop column at buckeyescoop.com. And we talked about the 2 offensive linemen who Ohio State has in that 2021 class already, Donovan Jackson and Ben Christman. You got to watch Christman on Friday, and it sounds like he had a monster evening for himself.
Yeah, he was impressive. You expect him to dominate at offensive line. He's going up against, smaller kids. Aurora did not have a very big front 4. So you'd expect him to, get a push, give us some pancakes, put some good film on there. But he blocked 2 extra points. And he played almost every snap. He got a couple quick breathers at various times, very quick, and was back out there. But he played most snaps on offense and defense. Played defensive tackle, had a sack. Probably should have had 2, maybe even 3. Had kind of one quarterback ducked under him, and another kid got the sack. And I think maybe they gave Ben a half on that one. But he was disruptive on defense. What I liked was he was explosive on defense, like a pass rusher, like coming out of his stance. I'm like, well, that's what you want to see, because that's kind of the difference between a great offensive lineman and an average offensive lineman. A lot of times is just that get off, that firing off the ball, and that explosiveness and athleticism. And he showed a lot of that, a lot of quickness for a guy who's already over 300 pounds. So I was impressed. Ben's been my number 2 guy in Ohio behind Jack Sawyer for most of the process. I think it's a great discussion on who is actually number 2. I think there's a lot of guys you could probably make a case for, but I think Ben cemented himself to me as a guy who's warrants being in that discussion for sure. I mean, I think he's a top 100 kid nationally. I think he's a really good player. I'm not sure I'm ready to put him quite on this level coming out of high school, and especially not in the NFL. I think it'd be a little unfair, but he does remind me a little bit of Andrew Norwell as a tackle/guard, could kind of play either one and plays with just kind of a real edge to his game. He's very physical, nice kid off the field, but when he gets out there, he's mean. So he reminds me a little bit of Andrew in that regard, but I was really impressed with him, and given the lack of practice and conditioning, it was their season opener, so lack of scrimmages and everything else, to play all those snaps, I thought was really impressive.
That is pretty impressive that Ben Christman was able to go both ways there, because we have seen the first couple weeks of high school ball without all of these summer scrimmages, without some of the practices, guys have not necessarily been in midseason shape. And to be able to go both ways and also pull that DeJuan Jones and block a couple kicks on special teams, that's really honestly pretty impressive. So Marc, thank you for joining us today. You can find Marc's Buckeye Scoop column at, guess what, buckeyescoop.com. That is lots of really, really good, insightful recruiting coverage there. And we've also had a whole lot of coverage of the Big Ten and, all of that stuff, all the stuff that's going on with the Big Ten right now. That's all at buckeyescoop.com. You can also make sure to find all of our podcasts on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and SoundCloud. Just search Buckeye Scoop to find all of those. You can subscribe right there. Also, we ask that you leave us a 5-star rating and review. That'll help other people find those shows as well. Thank you guys for listening. Have a great day. We will talk to you tomorrow.